What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'll be taking you guys through my very own team selection going into the upcoming Game Week 6. As we usually do, going to do a quick review of last game week 5, and the shorter we do the review, the better, because to say it was a bad game week would be an understatement, but then we're going to look at how to kind of bounce back from a bad game week when we do look at our transfer plan for the upcoming game week. And then finally, we're going to be touching on the team selection for game week 6, including my captaincy debate and all that good stuff. So that's something you guys are interested in? Sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So I know you guys are probably sick of this talking point. If you have watched the previous 2 videos that I've done this week, got a little bit of a shout out there, go check them out if you guys haven't. But if you guys are sick of it, it's probably because I'm doing my job, and that's a good thing in my books. So in terms of the League Cup, just another reminder that I am recording this on Wednesday, and I'll probably be releasing this video in a couple of hours, and there will be a lot of League Cup fixtures happening tonight with some high profile players potentially featuring. The one fixture that kind of springs to mind is going to be Manchester United versus West Ham, and I can honestly see both those sides putting out quite a strong starting 11. So please just keep your eyes on that fixture so that we know what's going to be happening this coming game week. So in terms of the injury news, playing time, I think this is going to be quite a good tell for us on our own FPL options. And if you guys have watched the fixture yesterday, you'll know that an injury did come to Luca Digne from Everton. So some high profile players are actually getting injured. So just make sure it's not that FPL option that you bring in with that free transfer for game week 6. Something to also keep your eyes on are going to be the pre and post-match conferences from these managers. As we saw yesterday with the Leeds manager kind of telling us about Bamford, Luke Ayling, all these kind of players that they're kind of missing out on these fixtures because they're injured, and we do kind of get news on them. So just keep your guys' eyes on this League Cup and kind of the injury news, the playing time, as it will give you some information to make some better FPL decisions. But now going on to our Game Week 5 team review, and as I said, not the best game week in the world. I probably will touch on how to kind of recover from a bad game week, the mindset about it in tomorrow's ultimate guide. So just drop it down in the comments below if you guys would like me to talk about that. I know the majority of managers this week, you kind of either had a bad game week or a really good one. There was kind of no in between, and I'll use the classic FPL saying of that it was a good game week to have a bad game week, but a great game week to have a good game week, and I think that pretty much sums Game Week 5 up quite well. But in terms of total points, we only scored 51, which is unfortunately below the average of I think about 55. So if you guys did get more than that, well done. As I said, great game week to have a good game week, but unfortunately we were on kind of the negative side of that analogy. In terms of overall ranks, that saw us kind of double our rank, even more than double. We were sitting just above that 90k mark come Game Week 5's deadline, but now unfortunately we're sitting just below the 220k mark. In terms of am I worried? Not too much, to be honest. I've been saying throughout the team selections this season that Game Week 10 is really the game week that you guys should be looking at your rank and seeing if you suddenly have to make some maverick moves to improve your situation. So now between game week 6 and 10, hopefully the rank does improve, but I'm fairly confident as the majority of our FPL team has some really good fixtures coming up. Starting off with the bench, there's only one singular player on our bench to kind of talk about, and that's going to be Ben Foster from Watford. So the first choice keeper from Watford, Bachmann, unfortunately did get injured. So fortunately for our FPL teams, Ben Foster is actually featuring for Watford and could potentially play this weekend against Newcastle. In terms of the rest of the bench, nothing much to go by there, but we'll talk about the team selection where we currently are on a little bit of a goalkeeper debate now that Ben Foster has been available for selection. Now moving on to the starting 11 and the defense, not much to talk about there. Probably the most important talking point to go over with our defense is going to be Trent Alexander-Arnold, who unfortunately woke up sick on that Saturday morning and didn't feature in the game against Crystal Palace. So it's a little bit annoying that Liverpool actually did keep a clean sheet, but the good news is that Trent should be available for selection come that Game Week 6 deadline. Just make sure you guys are watching the press conference news, and hopefully Jurgen Klopp gives us a positive update. We then have 2 players that unfortunately only scored 1 point. We're going to start off with Sanchez for Brighton, who against Leicester looked like they were on run for a nice little clean sheet there, but Leicester kind of turned it on in that final quarter, and suddenly there could have been 2 goals or 3 goals down. Fortunately, it was only 1 goal, but I also think Sanchez might have picked up a yellow card, which is a little bit annoying there, but considering he doesn't get too many save points, I would hope that he keeps the yellow cards to a minimum. Then Semedo, probably one of our disappointments of the game week. I can probably classify Wolves overall as our disappointment of the game week, as unfortunately against Brentford, they just seem to crumble. This was a home fixture if I do recall, so a little bit strange there that Wolves couldn't do it at home, and this might just actually be because Brentford played so well from an attacking and a defensive point of view, but ended up conceding 2 goals to Brentford, which wasn't really expected, and unfortunately couldn't kind of convert those points in terms of attacking returns. But in terms of Semedo, I'm quite confident because Wolves' defensive stats have been quite good since the start of the season, and with some nice fixtures coming up, I really do have more faith in the defensive side of Wolves than the attacking side. Now moving on to our double up of 2-point appearances, we have Luke Ayling for Leeds, who started off the game week against Newcastle with not getting a clean sheet and unfortunately only 2 points. But when you are coming up against the masterclass of Gucci or Saint Maximum, you got to kind of expect not to keep a clean sheet there. And that fixture got even worse when Luke Ayling was substituted late on into that fixture with an injury. Now we don't have too many updates about Ayling. The current consensus is that he's probably going to miss out on this upcoming game week 6. But in terms of my own team, I don't really have to play him, so I'm perfectly fine to keep him on my bench and then see how it goes from there. Then going on to Luke Shaw, who I think was probably unlucky not to keep a clean sheet here. No, I'm not saying that West Ham weren't bad from an attacking point of view. I thought in the first half West Ham actually looked quite strong, but to kind of concede a deflected long range shot is a little bit unlucky in my opinion. And that's why with Luke Shaw, not too angry about that one. Unfortunately, didn't get any attacking returns, even though he is crossing to Ronaldo, which seems to kind of every cross that goes to Ronaldo seems to be a goal right now. But then in terms of Luke Shaw, I think I'm going to probably be taking him to a Chelsea defender come game week 7 anyways. So hopefully in this next game week, he can provide us a nice little goodbye present. Now covering our Power 5 midfield inverted commas, because this week it was anything but a power midfield, except for maybe a Rafinha and a Mo Salah. The transfer that we did do in the deadline stream for Game Week 5 was we actually bought Rafinha in and we took Benrahma out. So on kind of paper that looked like a good move, but then as I said with Luke Shaw, unfortunately Benrahma did score a deflected shot. Now whether that shot would have gone in or not is up to debate. I think they always kind of give the attacker the benefit of the doubt, and I can honestly say that probably did go in with that curl, so I'm not too angry about that one. Just a little bit annoying that it was a deflected shot and not kind of a long range banger that came out to punish me. But in terms of Rafinha, actually ended up getting a return. I was quite happy on Friday night after kind of a lot of injury news. Apparently he had a knock that he was going to miss the Newcastle fixture, but managed to get the start. Kind of we had a little bit of early team news there, so thanks for that. But he ended up scoring and I was quite happy because I thought United with Luke Shaw would probably get a clean sheet, but that wasn't the case. And now I'm looking at kind of regretting that move a little bit after West Ham are playing a Leeds side that are already depleted from a defensive point of view, and then also has a nice fixture come game week 7. So whether that move is actually going to pay off is yet to be seen. And unfortunately with Rafinha also kind of nursing a knock right now, and he actually was subbed around that 60-minute mark on Friday evening. The next trio of disappointments were going to be Traore, Diego Jota and Greenwood. The most points we got out of them was 3 points from Diego Jota, which was very disappointing after, if you guys did watch the fixture, his massive miss. Now might not have been the biggest miss in the world, but it definitely was quite a bad one. And watching that game, I was quite disappointed when he managed to miss that, as Jota right now is my little bit of a differential to the current template that's going around. Greenwood unfortunately also didn't get returns, but I guess you could have said that West Ham game was a little bit of a tougher one for United. They just really didn't seem to get going until later on in the fixture. And the bad thing about it is that when Greenwood actually came off, the game seemed to open up quite a bit. And I really would have wished that he stayed on for that full 90. But I guess that's just the thing with Greenwood. He's not going to play a full 90 every game week. And that's just something that we're going to have to take into account when we do look at our transfer plan. But now going on to yet again a disappointment of our game week. As I said, Wolves in general were quite a disappointment. And we're going to be going on to Adama Traore. Now, I don't think it's Adama's fault that we brought him in knowing that he was a bad finisher and he just simply hasn't been finishing or getting any FPL returns. And I'm not lying here, I literally switched the Wolves game on and he had that shot that hit the crossbar. Now, I think it was a bit of a deflection, so I'm not too angry about it, but just imagine that the only kind of minute I watched of that Wolves fixture was Adama Traore hitting the crossbar and my heart completely shattered, as I knew that was probably going to be the only chance that he had at getting some FPL returns. Wolves overall didn't look great from an attacking point of view, and I think they were yet to get a shot on target against Brentford, which just shows you, one, that Wolves' attack isn't great, but also two, maybe Brentford's defense has to get more credit. But in terms of Adama, I don't really know what to do with him right now because it doesn't seem like that finishing is improving, so I might actually have to switch him out this game week and make it quite a little bit of a short stunt that he's been in my FPL team. The final player to cover in our starting 11 is going to be CR7 himself. Now, Ronaldo only did get a goal. It was a little bit of a lucky one, kind of hit it straight at the keeper and got the deflection. If you are a Bruno Fernandes owner, we're probably quite annoyed at that one as he completely eliminated any Bruno Fernandes points. But in terms of other stats in that West Ham game, just kind of a perfect FPL option to own. Shoots on sight when he's 2-on 3-1-1 doesn't pass to his teammates. That's also a good thing if you didn't own Greenwood, but as a Greenwood owner, I was super disappointed when he didn't kind of square it to Greenwood on the bounce, as that would have probably been a definite goal for United. Couple of penalty shouts as well, and I just think seeing his reaction to not getting those penalties really did show me that he's going to be on penalties, so I really wouldn't worry about Ronaldo not being on penalties at this stage of the game. But as I said, perfect kind of FPL option to own, shoots on sight, super selfish option, and he is getting a lot of chances in these Premier League games. So overall, really bad game week, and the bad thing about this game week is that it's put a lot of thoughts in my mind about potential transfers. And we always do talk about that patience factor in FPL, where if you have a bad game week, maybe just be a little bit patient, maybe these players will come good. But unfortunately with the Adama Traore, I don't know if that time is going to come before game week 38. So now moving on to our injury talking point, and the reason why I wanted to talk about this talking point before the transfers is that it's probably going to dictate if I make a transfer or not. So we spoke about the Leeds assets. Bamford currently nursing a little bit of an ankle injury, Rafinha out, Ayling out. We also have the Trent whole situation that's happening, but I don't really think I would take Trent out anyways. But if he is going to be missing another game week, I might have to bring another replacement for my bench, because I simply don't have a bench at the moment. But I think the high profile injuries right now are going to be those Leeds assets, Rafinha and Bamford. My early expectation here is that Bamford's going to be perfectly fine, and I think Rafinha will as well, as there was no update from Bielsa on Rafinha before that League Cup game. But in terms of Bamford, I think he'll also be fine. I think both Leeds assets will be great. But the thing about the Leeds manager is that he's usually quite transparent on these things, so I don't think we have to worry too much about him not saying anything in that press conference. So in terms of my own team, if Rafinha is injured, I think that that'll probably make me transfer him out. But if he is going to be fit, we'll now talk about the transfers that I currently am potentially doing. And these transfers largely revolve around my mid-range midfielders. So in terms of Greenwood, Diogo Jota, and also Adama Traore, all three of these options kind of have their pros and cons, and honestly I can see myself transferring all of them out, as they really haven't been performing over the short term. Diogo Jota is a little bit simpler of a reason. Bobby Firmino is going to be back in training, I think either today or yesterday. I don't think he's completely in full team training, but he's kind of edging towards that point where he's going to be back. But I think Jota will still get Brentford, and that's probably the only thing that's not making me take him out. So I really do think if I take Jota out before Brentford, although Brentford have been good from a defensive point of view, I think that's kind of shooting myself in the foot there, and I do think he could still get some returns even if he does come off the bench for Firmino against Brentford. So I do think Jota comes out of the equation. The only thing that might sway my mind if Klopp comes out in the press conference tomorrow or Friday and says that Firmino is ready to play and he's going to be in the starting 11. So Jota can kind of be eliminated from my transfer thoughts right now, and that leaves me with two options: Greenwood and then also Adama Traore. So with Greenwood, I think he's more of a kind of rotation threat than Jota is at the current moment, and that really does worry me. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be looking at that United vs West Ham game tonight, and if Greenwood starts tonight, I think he'll be benched on the weekend. But if Greenwood is benched, Sancho starts, something like that, I think that Greenwood will still start against Aston Villa, and I think Jota and Greenwood both have the maximum of one game week left in them. So as I said, if Greenwood features tonight, I'll be quite tempted to take him out, because United's fixtures get only worse after game week 6, and they do go on quite a bad run until about game week 15. So that leaves me with one man and one man only, and it's kind of a fitting that it is going to be Adama Traore. Now the Wolves midfielder, as I said, not his fault that we brought him in with high expectations, but I honestly thought that he would get a couple more returns than he currently has. I guess you could argue that about the entire Wolves team. If you look at any kind of XG stats, the Wolves players are absolutely off the charts, and they simply just haven't got any attacking returns. So with Adama Traore, my current thinking is that I might actually let him have a short stay in my FPL team and take him to another option, and the option that I'm currently thinking about is going to be Ismaila Sarr. So that transfer really does hurt, because between Ismaila Sarr and Traore, those my kind of combinations. I was going kind of back and forth between the both of them. There was a situation where I actually brought in both of them in my transfer plan if I did keep Tsimikas. So now Tsimikas starts game week 5, gets those clean sheet points, and I mean, I'm looking at that move as a complete fail because Jota has simply not returned as well. But let's kind of put the past in the past here, focus on the future, be a little bit more positive and not that negative. And in terms of Adama Traore, right now it does look like I could take him out for an Ismaila Sarr and kind of correct the decision that I made a couple game weeks ago. If Rafinha is also injured, I think number one pick will be Ismaila Sarr, just because in terms of the next two fixtures, he does look great in those ones, and I think they'll kind of replicate the Norwich game where it's more of an open game, and I think that kind of fits Watford, to be honest. So right now I'm keeping my free transfers close to my chest, and I might not even make one for game week 6, but if I do, it'll 100% be for a midfielder, and I can honestly see the Watford winger coming into my side at the expense of either Rafinha or Adama Traore. Now, if you guys don't want to make that transfer of Adama Traore out, I can perfectly understand it. Wolves do have good stats behind them, and they still do have some nice fixtures. And in terms of a long-term move, I think that could be quite a fine decision to make. It just depends if you guys are going to be wildcarding in Game Week 7 or Game Week 8, as you might want to take a couple more punts before you do activate that wildcard chip. But now going on to our Game Week 6 team selection, as I said, this is going to be with no transfers made at the current moment. And as I always say, just stay tuned to that deadline stream on Saturday to get the most up-to-date team selection as possible. So starting off with the goalkeeper debate, and this is what I was talking about. Now that Ben Foster is probably going to play for Watford on the weekend, we now have a kind of two-playing goalkeeper scenario with two relatively good fixtures. We have Sanchez against Crystal Palace away, and then we also have Foster against Newcastle at home. And currently my decision has been made just because one of my favorite footballers is playing against one of my goalkeepers, and that's going to be Gucci and Maximum. It's just a simple thing. If Gucci's on the field, you're probably not going to get a clean sheet, and that's just how I kind of feel about the Watford situation. So right now Sanchez is going to be in goal, although it is Crystal Palace away, and Crystal Palace have been quite a good attacking side. I just am favouring that Brighton defence, to be honest, as they have been quite solid in the previous couple game weeks. But I do think the ceiling between this decision isn't too high. I think maximum both of these do get as a clean sheet and maybe a couple save points. So don't really break your mind over this decision. As I said, it's not going to have the highest ceiling in the world. In terms of the rest of the defense, we have Luke Shaw against the Aston Villa side that have kind of picked up form against Everton last game week. So I'm kind of worried about United because they have been conceding the odd couple goals. But in terms of Luke Shaw, as I mentioned in the team review, probably going to become a Chelsea defender next week anyway. So I'm kind of just hoping for a nice goodbye present from the English fullback. Now Trent should be back to full fitness after this illness that he had. Apparently he actually wanted to play the Crystal Palace game, but the Liverpool medical staff suggested that he does rest, and I think he'll be fine to go for game week 6. So I'm kind of holding thumbs because in terms of Brentford, although they did beat Wolves 2-0 last week, they haven't been that great from an attacking point of view. This is a home game for them, so I think it's going to kind of spur them on, but I'm almost hoping for a kind of open-ended game so that Jota and Salah can reap the rewards of that at the expense of maybe that Liverpool defense. We then go on to Semedo, who has Southampton. This has been a little bit of a debate. If you had a Livramento on the bench, would you either start Livramento, would you start a Marcelo or Semedo? I'm currently going to go for a Semedo if I did own a Livramento, as I just think he offers more of an attacking threat, and I'm just kind of hoping that Wolves manage to bounce back here. And if you guys have watched the previous Southampton games, they've been 0-0 draws all over, so maybe a 0-0 draw won't be that bad for my own team. Going on to that Power 5 midfield that has shown its vulnerabilities in Game Week 5, I'm going to start off with Rafinha against West Ham. Now, I honestly think this game could go either way. I think it could be a really boring 0-0, but I am expecting a lot of goals, and I think the general public are expecting a lot of goals as well, and usually that means it's going to be quite a boring game. But in terms of Leeds, because they have so many injuries from a defensive point of view, I think they simply have to score goals, and that's why I still think Rafinha could get off to a nice start in Game Week 6. West Ham have also not been the best defensively, haven't really shown that form of last season, so I do think Leeds could get a couple goals. Yes, if you guys are Bamford, a Rafinha owner, I still am holding hope for that fixture. Adama Traore against Southampton, and Southampton have looked great from a defensive point of view, so I don't really know how I feel about that one. And in terms of Adama Traore, can't even score against easy opposition, so I am worried about him. And as I mentioned, the transfer plan could easily take him to Ismail Assar and kind of correct that transfer decision that I made a couple of game weeks ago. With Traore, I simply have no hope for him, and if he does get a return, it's kind of bonus because he's just been such a bad FPL option at the current moment, and I only have myself to kind of blame. Jota and Salah against Brentford, although they have been great defensively, I don't think it's been a kind of against the highest opposition, and I think Liverpool are definitely that highest attacking opposition to kind of face, so it'll be a really good test for Brentford, but I am still favouring Liverpool, and I think they will score a couple here, and I just kind of hope that Jota manages to start, as I think that he could get some returns hopefully. Going on to Greenwood, as I said, going to be watching him tonight. If he does start against West Ham, I don't think he'll start on the weekend, and I think they might revert back to a Sancho or maybe a Pogba at that left wing position, but right now, I think that Greenwood is going to be in my team, and if he is benched tonight, I do think against Aston Villa that he could get some FPL returns. Now going on to our front two, and the one I'm actually more excited about is going to be Antonio against Leeds. Spoke about those Leeds kind of defensive injuries. I think at West Ham are going to have a field day here, and that does worry me as a non-Benrahma owner, but I think Antonio can perfectly get some returns here, and I am slightly hoping for it. In terms of kind of going a little bit under the radar with your captaincy, I do suggest Antonio as a more differential captain because this Leeds fixture looks absolutely splendid, and I do think Antonio is going to come back from that suspension with a bang and probably quite a big haul. But going on to Ronaldo against Aston Villa, and we kind of spoke about him being a perfect FPL option, just in terms of that kind of selfishness that you do get with these more premium assets. And we'll kind of talk about the captaincy debate right now. And in terms of Mo Salah and kind of going for Ronaldo, the only thing that's kind of edging it for me right now is that home fixture for Ronaldo and that away game for Mo Salah. So we've seen this season throughout the opening couple game weeks, the home teams have generally performed a little bit better than the away teams. And that's why I think that I would rather favor the home fixture of Aston Villa for Ronaldo than the Brentford away game for Mo Salah. But this is kind of a 60-40 decision right now, and that extra 10% is accounted for the home fixture, and that could easily change if something happens through the press conferences, or maybe I just want to bring out the Mo Salah shirt in the deadline stream once again. So this is the current team selection right now. I haven't made any transfers. I'm going to be waiting for those Thursday and Friday press conferences, but I think in the deadline stream come Saturday afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you guys are around the world, I will be able to probably put a better team selection out. But this is basically wrap the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. One thing I wanted to note in the comments down below is I would really appreciate some feedback from you, the viewers. If you've made it to this late in the video, you're probably one of my OG supporters or my better supporters. So I always do appreciate more feedback from you guys, as I know that you take my videos a little bit more seriously. So in terms of videos that you think I should make, videos that you don't actually like, improvements you think I can make to these videos, I would appreciate any kind of feedback, as I'm kind of going through my mind here on what changes I can make to the videos and my YouTube channel in general. But I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.